Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine and Metal Nation Radio, and all the way across the pond talking to our friend Jan Yrlund. I probably still butchered it, of course, from Imperia. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. Thanks for checking us out and giving me a call. Cool.
Oh, absolutely. I was just playing around on social media having a debate on politics, which is always like beating your head against the wall.
Oh, man. Yeah, tell me about it.
All right, well, let's talk about music. Let's talk about new Imperia. It's been nearly 5 years between albums, your longest break yet. What's been going on with Imperia over that time? Because you guys didn't really start working on the new album till 2014, right?
Yeah, that's true. Basically, what happened is we moved to different countries in between already a few years earlier, actually. So that kind of slowed us down a little bit because you didn't meet each other that often anymore. But the last album, The Secret Passion from 2011, that one was actually the first album that we recorded kind of from a long distance. And in a way, we took it even over the top because we didn't even meet each other during the recordings at all. So basically, everybody recorded their parts in their countries, like the drummer in Germany and bass player in Belgium and Helena in Norway, and I did my parts in Finland. And we didn't meet each other. We mixed it in Denmark, and we met each other after the release in London, actually, where we played the songs for the first time together. Well, this time we wanted to do it a little bit different because that was not that much fun in the end. Because a part of making music and recording is also that you are together and you share the views and opinions and stuff. So this time we did it a little bit differently. I wrote music as usually right after Secret Passion. I started to write music, but it went down pretty slow. Don't know why. Sometimes it is like that, sometimes it isn't. And 2013, 14, by then we had enough songs, and then we started to record. Decided to start to record, and this time indeed a little bit differently. So we all traveled to Germany to record drums and stuff. So it's much more a band joint effort this time.
It's great that we have technology that allows us to do that, where people can send stuff to each other and do that. But being in the studio, so much of the dynamics change, songs themselves, they come in one way, they may end up on the album a different way because things just change and twist once you're in the same room together, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And that makes it for a band like we are, that makes a huge difference, actually. Many bands, of course, they rehearse together, they write songs together, they jam together, but we are not like that at all. We write our music. The music is already almost ready when we have the demos done. It's just has to be played in and better and arranged to a band, but the songs themselves are ready. But what happens in studio, then you start to record drums, and the drummer comes with an idea, so let's do this kind of fill here or there, and can we maybe slow that part down and stuff like that, And that is much more fun to do together. And sometimes those opinions make the songs much more dynamic and real in a way. Yeah. It doesn't sound so synthetic anymore.
Right, it's more organic.
Yeah. And it's also, by the way, quite much fun to record together. They're great guys, and it's cool to hang around and have a few beers and everything. So it's just cool to record together.
Well, tell us about the new record, Tears of Silence, from your perspective as an overall album.
Well, this time we wanted to take a little bit of step to more simple direction in a way. The previous album had a few songs actually from our producer, Oliver, and next to my songs, and the difference was being that some of the songs turned out to be way too progressive to our taste. So they're cool songs to listen on the album, but they are completely impossible to play live, or at least they would suck big time. So that's not fun. It's much more on a studio album than the albums before. And this time we wanted to take the step back and write more straightforward metal songs. Of course, having the Imperia edge there and huge orchestrals and stuff like that, but more straight metal songs, more simple structures, and then again have maybe more real guest musicians and stuff like that appearing on the album. So I think as a whole it's quite compact, even though it's very lengthy album, as we always have a really long albums, but it's still kind of a compact and makes sense from start to finish, to my opinion.
Well, and that's one of the things I always wonder about too, because even though it's not necessarily a concept album per se, there's this great flow to the album, and it always makes me wonder how much thought do you put into the sequencing of the songs? What's going to go where? The length of break between them?
That's always the most hard part, actually, of the whole album. When you record and you have all the songs ready to be mastered, and then you start thinking about the song order, and that's a pain. You already know which few songs will be the most popular ones. Probably you have your favorite. You want to have one of the favorites in the beginning of the, let's say, second or third song. And the first one has to start with us always kind of, up-tempo middle song, let's say. Mm-hmm. But the rest of that, you have no clue. You know you have to put the ballad somewhere in between, but that's impossible choice to... Yeah, so... we took this time at least a week for it. Everybody's opinions. Everybody has a different opinion, and a producer has different opinion. And in a way, that you just try it out on iTunes. You just put all the songs there, and you switch the order and try to listen to it as a whole. I think that's very important. I think people still listen to whole albums and not just one songs. And especially in metal, it's not like a kind of a single genre anyway. So. It is important. You have to have that flow there and keep the interest, that it doesn't drop in between, and
Yeah, well, and especially for a band like Imperia, it's not like, Megadeth, where there's these one or two songs that everybody wants to go bang their head to, and they don't necessarily listen to the whole album all the time. With an album like yours, you really want to listen to the whole thing and take it in as a piece. And there are some fantastic folk elements on Tears of Silence you haven't really used much previously.
That's true, yeah. We have had on Queen of Light, I think we had one folk song, kind of a metal folk song, but for the rest we haven't had that, and that's kind of surprising in a way, since I've always written for folk songs, but for some reason we never used those with Imperia. We had more of these oriental elements in there, always arabesque things going on, but this time. We had a few of these, and as I have a lot of people I know from my daily work as a designer, I have some bands I work with, and I have made covers for them. So it's easy for me to ask these guys to help me out in turn. So I found this Spanish band, Yrlund, who have bagpipes and flutes and whatnot, all the folk stuff we need. So that just asked the guy, their player, that would he be interested in playing in one of those songs, and that really create all these real bagpipes and stuff there, and the same way I found this ex-Corpiclonic man, Hector Mine, playing also some tin flutes and whistles and stuff like that. That's completely makes a huge difference in the songs, because some acoustic instruments you just can't sample. That's true.
What else did you try on this record that maybe you haven't done or tried before?
Well, we had a piece of a choir actually this time. I always wanted to have a choir with real people. That's also one of the instruments which is pretty hard to sample. So, even though you have really beautiful samples these days and stuff, but still when it comes to real things like choirs and acoustic instruments, that's really hard to replace with samples. So this choir idea, I've been playing with that idea for years, for all of our albums actually, and sometimes we did it just with Helena. She can sing a lot of different voices, so we just doubled and tripled and multiplied her voices, but then in the end you still hear it's her. So we wanted to have something else, and I had this guy from Russia actually as a client of mine. He I knew that the singer of their band sings in the conservatorium in Moscow. So I asked them that would you please be interested recording some choirs for us, because you have the guys there and you have the studio, you have the know-how. And yes, they did it, and that's why we have on one song we have a real Russian choir going on, and that's pretty awesome. I really love it. It sounds huge, and it sounds definitely Russian. If you know what I mean, it sounds like this kind of Russian army choir or whatnot. It's unbelievable. Really, really cool job from the guys.
Yeah, it really adds to the song, the record, and everything. And then you mentioned Helena is doing some new things vocally on this record too.
Yeah. I don't know why, but this time she got into grunting, and I've never heard her grunt before. And you know that you have these bands, of course, where you have female grunters, but she has no clue of those. She never listens to other bands. She never have heard Arch Enemy or anybody like that. But something out of the blue, she started to grunting on one song, and I was really, what's going on here? We were all in the vocal recordings in Germany, the rest of the guys as well, and we were sitting on the couch and listening to her, and oh man, she can do that. And then suddenly she started doing a few songs, so we have her grunting here and there on heavy parts this time. Kind of funny stuff, actually.
One of the things I've always noticed on, it seems like every album when I talk to people, is there always seems to be one song, you may have even had it already completely demoed up, but then you get in the studio and you struggle to get it exactly the way you want it. Pieces just aren't falling into place. And ultimately it's the one you have the biggest problem with, although a lot of times it turns out to be one of the best songs on the record. Did you have a song like that on this record that you really sort of struggled to get all the pieces put together before it finally fell into place?
This time, actually, everything went pretty smooth, I'd say. It was on a previous album we had one song called Greed, which actually has been following me for at least 15 years. That song I originally recorded with my ex-band even, and it never made it to the record. We spent like a week on the song, on studio already, just arranging, trying to get it done. So we recorded with the ex-band, but it never made it to the record because we were not 100% with it. So then we recorded it with Imperia in 2006 for the Queen of Light album, but still we weren't really happy with it, so we skipped it from that album, and then we recorded it now, this time for the Secret Passion for the third time, actually. And finally we got it right, and it's on the last album, but still didn't make it in the middle. It's somewhere in the end, in the between. I love the song, but only a few of us share my opinion of the song, so... I don't know. Luckily, this time we didn't have such a hard time. This time everything went pretty smooth, I guess.
I wanted to ask you too about, because the title of the album, "Tears of Silence," there's the opening song refers to silence. There's another record on the song that refers to silence. It's not a concept album, but there seems to be a little bit of a theme going on with part of it. What's the story there for the whole silence theme?
It's pretty personal, actually. It's because of our singer Helena. She's been through a lot of hard times last years, and some of her lyrics are pretty personal, I'd say. And I'm not getting deeper into that, but let's say she's been having a hard time, and the silence part refers to that in a way, because she feels like she's not being heard and respected and stuff like that. So. It's kind of a sad title in a way, of course, because you have tears there in as well. Mm-hmm. But that's why I wanted to give it a little bit hope as well when I did the cover for it, because I pictured the tears falling through her fingers, but in the end the tears turn into butterflies and something beautiful. So it's like, okay, it's sad, but there's hope in a way. Right. But. Indeed, this silence refers to that, actually. It's kind of a sad title, I think.
Over here in North America, anyway, people aren't as familiar with you as they are, say, over in Europe and the Scandinavian areas. So to help our listeners get a chance to know you a little bit better, tell us a bit about your path musically. Was there an album or a concert or some moment where the light went on and you said, this is what I want to do with my life?
Yeah, personally, yeah. Well, I've been around quite a bit in music scene, let's say. Started already in the 80s, actually. I think the band who blew the bank was actually Metallic, probably. I saw them live here in Finland in 86 on a festival. And before that, it was the Ride the Lightning tour, actually. And that concert was the starting point. Then I put up a band, thrash metal band myself, of course. Started playing thrash and speed metal, like everybody did in the day. and managed to get a record deal even. So with a kind of a major label here in Finland. So we did 3 albums with that band in 88, 89. So that's my starting point for the making music already. It's basically speed metal, and maybe you still can hear it in some riffing and stuff like that. But let's say this orchestra part came along a little bit later, like in the beginning of the 90s. I played moved to Amsterdam actually, and played there in a German band called Lacrimosa, and that band was one of the first to introduce this female gothic, let's say, metal. I played guitar in the band, and in the album we made, that was kind of a, let's say, pre-round for all the atmospheric gothic metal bands, in a way.
Right.
Because you were mixing orchestrals, heavy orchestrals, and with the heavy guitars, and still having normal singing on top of that. I don't think many bands did that in the day. I remember even in the studio where we recorded the album in '94. The next band who came after us was Therion from Sweden. So they didn't even start it yet back that time. So they were kind of inspired by what we were doing. But let's say all the orchestra kind of a classical music kind of a part I took with me from that band till today. That's kind of what I always really liked. But mixing with the guitars, and preferably mixing it with the kind of let's say speed metal, power metal guitars. I'm not so into this let's say industrial or stuff like that. It's more like old school in a way.
Right. Were there particular influences you had as a songwriter and a guitarist?
That's kind of hard to say. Not well for songwriting, I guess. I just pick up what I listen around me and what I like and stuff like that, I guess. As a guitar player, that's another story, of course, because everybody wanted to play in the day like the guys of Metallica or from Slayer and stuff like that. So that was definitely the style. You try to maybe not being technically like these days. You have guitar players who are really awesome and technical, and everybody can play whatever scales and shit. But back in the day, it was more like, to my opinion, more like a feeling thing. You just play. You shred the guitar like you feel it should be shredded, and you didn't care at all about techniques or scales or music theory. That didn't matter at all. And basically, that's still today like that. You just pick up a guitar and you just play what you feel. And I never took any lessons. I never played any cover songs or cover bands or nothing. It's just like it's a feeling thing.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
An original right from the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get out of here, as you've alluded to a few times, you handled the album design once again on this record. You've been in graphic design and illustration for a good 2 decades at least now, which is another passion of yours, and great talent at it. I love the recent covers alone that you've done for Korpiklani, Stormhammer. How did you get into all of that?
Yeah. That's my daily job. Actually, I run a small company on my own, and basically make covers for metal bands and websites and stuff like that, and illustrations. And I started already also in the 80s. I was drawing comics actually. I was a big fan of underground comics and all this horror and splatter and science fiction comics actually. So we started up with a few friends. We started up underground magazine, comic magazine, which we basically just printed ourselves and sold friends at school. And that was the beginning of it. And even the very first album cover, which I made for my own band in '88, that was the first cover I made for a released album, let's say. And from there, it just took on in a way. Then other bands started to asking as well, you want to help us out and stuff like that. I never studied that. I did go to art school in my high school, but I never went to any academy or anything like that. I just learned it by myself. And later on, when the computers came in picture, then of course you didn't have to hand draw anything anymore, or at least less. Which I still do with the tablet, but I don't have to fool around with oil paints and stuff anymore. But bands started to ask me for covers, so I started to help them out more and more. And let's say somewhere 20 years ago or So then that was so much that it was like half was designing stuff and half was playing basically. And last 10 years it's only been actually this graphic design more or less, and music has been less in a way in my daily life. But of course, we still make albums and tour and stuff like that. But the graphic design occupies my most of my time.
Well, it's nice that you can do two things that you're so passionate about.
Yeah. I think it's in a way a privilege, and also that you can work on your own. That's kind of a rare thing that doesn't happen so often. You have your passion and what you want to do, and you can make your living out of it. You can put up a company and kind of survive with it. It seems to be. That's kind of a rare thing. I don't have to go to a factory or supermarket or whatever to work.
Awesome. Jan, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. Tears of Silence, fantastic album, and we just appreciate you taking a little time to talk about it.
Yeah, no problem. It was my pleasure.
All right, take care, my friend.